is okay, Brother Shastri, because it's a different mode that I'm seeing.
No. So I can't see.
You can't see the slide, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me again put it up. But I can see. Start sharing. Can you see it, brother?
Not yet. Not yet.
Really? Large gallery mode. I don't know which mode to select. But from my side, it is showing as
I
sharing.
think you just stop. Probably
Yeah, I can see.
you can see now.
Yeah, I can see.
Because as per my screen, the it is showing. I've selected the monitor, which it is. Let me know, brother, before we proceed, because it's
No,
important.
you're in which mode you're viewing?
No, it's a presentation mode. I can see the screen which is selected is actually on
Yeah, you must
display.
go sorry, speaker view. Then only it will be. It is being.
Okay,
Yeah, it is in speaker
okay.
view.
Let me put the speaker view.
Yeah. It's coming. It's coming now. I can see.
Okay, okay. Oh, so that's again now okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sairam, brothers and sisters. Sorry for the initial few hiccups, but that we have in every speck of life. Spirituality is not left over, without this. We always take some time to start up, and that's where the initial payload fuel is required when we start off, when the satellites are launched till they go to the escape velocity. Same thing is with sadhana, with our spiritual journey. There will be initial, crawling, initial dropping, initial falling, but then, as long as we are focused that we have to get up and walk and walk and walk relentlessly towards the same Bhagwan, same Master on the same path, I think He'll help us to hold our hands and move ahead. So, warm welcome again to a Sunday Satsang, bi weekly Satsang, a side vaccine in today's parlance, in the sense that we might have, sped ahead of the COVID. But as we see around, some of the places, countries are still in this turmoil. They haven't come out, and so nothing's over. So let's keep our guards on, both spiritual, physical, mental, because whenever we pray, we must pray for Trikana Shuddhi, thought, word, and deed, for mental health, for physical health, and for spiritual health, and that's very, very important, right? So let's move on with this today's satsang. Again, satsang where we establish, try to reconnect to God, because it's a moment where we connect to the divine, tune into Him, and reach out to Him, not knowing that He's already reached out to us. It's just a matter of time for us to reach out. And this satsang on a Sunday additionally gives us that particular moment to come together and be with Him. Again, let's remember to keep the priorities very, very right. Okay, first God, second world, and last ourselves. And as Bhagwan beautifully described, wishing you all, by the way, a very, very happy Easter. So, in terms of, as we are talking about Lord Jesus, Bhagwan said, joy, when you break the words, Joy, you will see the first is J, which is Jesus, next is O, which is others, and Y is yourself, which is last. If we keep that order in or that priority in our lives, when we think about God first, others next, and then ourselves is last, He will automatically reverse it and put us in His priority list on the top. So that's an important part for us to understand. This satsang also helps us to remind that we are not human beings who have come down to try to have a spiritual journey, but we are spiritual beings who have come down incidentally to have a human experience. It's very important. God separated, Swami said, I separated myself from myself to love myself. So the whole creation started with the love. The whole creation is a reflection of the divine. Why? Because He says, I separated myself. So when we see in each other, it's the same God which resides. All right. That's why Swami very easily sees Divyatma Swarupa, because his pedestal of superconscious existence, superconsciousness, he knows. Why? Because he's prevalent in everyone. His vision is different. We are very limited due to our very, our vision and understanding of things. So we don't see that prevailing God in everyone, right? So that's an important journey we have to cover, where we start seeing God in everyone. So this satsang also helps us to remind that it's not us who is trying to reach out to God, but God is there who is also equally eager to reach out to us. He's waiting for us. Unless we have tried to connect in the preceding weeks or the days, you can imagine the yearning even a God has for his bhakta. As we try to tune in ourselves on this Sunday, gather a little bit of momentum in pining and yearning for him so that he appears. So what we try also is to make connection with God, right? So he is trying to call us. Definitely he's trying to call us. But are we having that sim, that number within us? Sim Sai in me. Have we loaded that? Do we have that love so that it automatically connects? And that is the topic that we have embarked upon in a few weeks back. Divine love with the cosmic glue, right? We have done a little bit part of it, and time prevailing, if it completes today is fine. But love cannot complete, cannot have a time. We can't bind it in time. This is a topic we're trying to, go within and understand how divine love and how worldly love, we need to discriminate and understand what is lasting and what is not. And you remember last time we spoke about the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee. They both are in Jordan. They both are quite close. They both receive water from the same river. But the one part, Galilee, is completely green and thriving with life, with marine life, with everything. But the other part, which is reaching the same water from the same river, Dead Sea, as the name says, is completely dead, is completely salty. Its density is more than that of water, right? So people who go there, I mean, some of the friends have gone, they float. So why there is a difference when the source is same? Because Dead Sea does not share its water. It just confines the water within itself. Whereas the Sea of Galilee just shares, moves on. And that's how the love also must be taken. The worldly love is like a Dead Sea where we try to stagnate, confine the love. And when we confine the love only to the family or the friends or the ones that we know which is connected to this body consciousness, it stagnates, it becomes like a Dead Sea. And when we expand it, when it becomes expansive in nature, that we are able to share the same love, realize the same God, and move on, then it becomes the divine love. And that's a big difference. We spoke about how, these two are different. So again, this was important part of the journey where Bhagavan said, I separate myself to love myself. However, before I could love myself, there was something which we brought in. When we came in with a clean slate, right? But something we brought in, which is, as we grew up, was something which is called Dehabhiman, body consciousness. Our intrinsic I, the big I, the consciousness got buried under multiple small I's that we created in this journey. It eclipsed the divinity within, right? And we started interacting more with on a Dehabhiman basis rather than Atma Viran. So we have created this web around us, right? And it's very important that we come out of this, because until and unless we choose to make a difference, choose to be different, choose to use not the mind but the heart, okay, we will be far away from the target. So our journey is from Koham to Soham, right? To realize that same God resides in me, and not only in me, in everyone else, whomsoever we interact, right? And then it pervades in the entire universe, into every speck of the universe. So that's an important journey we have, and the satsang reminders always help us to understand, because this has been the whole gambit of the Swami's Sai organization when he created for the devotees. It is basically a spiritual evolution, not an activity oriented organization. It was completely oriented that we realize the divinity within us. We can choose different paths to realize it, but the whole game and the end of the game is to realize the divinity within us. So Koham to Soham is the journey. So Prema Bhagavan says, the contemplate, meditated on Swami's pure, sweet, unconditional love. Once we start feeling, living with that, it is automatically bound to invoke that love within us. And once that comes in, we don't need to fight anger. We don't need to fight hatred. We don't need to fight lust. We don't need to fight greed. Brothers and sisters, when that the luminous intensity, as you call it, is the light. Suppose we have got small, in Deepavali and all, we put those small colorful lights around, right? They have their own lights, yes. So let's imagine they are Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mad, Moh. All these lights are burning. But the moment we choose to light halogen, LED halogen, 50 watts, 30 watts, which is same like love for the divine, then automatically every other light just gets buried under this particular light. And that is what the power of love is, divine love is. It will help us to not only get over that, but eliminate the possibilities of these Arshdavargas. Right? Satsang, again, participation, as we spoke about a few times, is very important. We say in a very focused state of mind, not like a dosa pan where things evaporate. That means anything with the satsang with a lot of stress just gets over. Why? Because it doesn't retain. It should be like a dewdrop which stays for a while, or even better is like a pearl which is created from a raindrop. A raindrop comes few years and turns into a pearl. And that's how our setting should be. Our approach, Bhagwan says, towards God or devotion is threefold. It depends on individual vasanas and the individual sanskaras that we have been born with, or we intentionally try to correct ourselves. We basically have an eagle approach. That is, suddenly you remember God on some day. Suddenly something happens, and then you go at the feet of the Lord, right? It's a very short-term oriented kind of a sadhana, which is like an eagle. So eagle, you see, comes and pounces and then moves on with the prey. That's how we see prayer or pray. We come down to make a connect with God when there is a tremendous need felt, tremendous difficulty felt. We can have a monkey approach, like some of us have it, on and off. We are not steady in our sadhana, but yes, we keep hopping around. Sometimes we go to this temple, sometimes that master, sometimes we do 100, 1008 names, then we reduce to 108 names, and then finally it is just Satsang Baba Namaha, and then one name. So it's all a convenience approach which takes over when you have this kind of an approach like a monkey. And Bhagwan says the best approach is that of an ant, which is persistent, steadfast, keeps moving together. And that's important part in our sadhana. We should have that kind of an approach, which normally, the ant colony has. So this is important when we sit with any bhajan, any session, that what kind of approach we are sitting with, what kind of frame of mind we are sitting with, right? We must be with an empty slate, with an empty cup, so that things can pour into our being, right? Now, we just had a very pious and holy week, preceding week, where we had, Happy Baisakhi, we had Happy Vishu, Tamil New Year, just, I think it was on 14th, and so on and so forth. So the whole week was reverberating, and then yesterday we had Hanuman Jayanti, right? We had Good Friday on Friday, where Lord Jesus, when on the date to commemorate his crucifixion, right? But what is that crucifixion all about? What is that Good Friday? Bhagwan has explained so beautifully. He says, cutting the I, the feeling, and let your ego die on the cross. So when we are talking about the eyes that we have created, the moment we plan to start cutting it, cutting the ties that bind, cutting the eye that binds, that is the date actually what the cross, Bhagwan says, signifies. His crucifixion was winning over his Deha Vimana and connecting to Atma Vimana. When he was in the cross, we'll see some of the things that will come, but it's very important to understand. Imagine even if a needle pricks, brothers and sisters, how do we react and jump? And here was one of the greatest masters of the time, with no fault except that he was challenging the existing conservative system, and he was preaching brotherhood of man and fatherhood of God, love all and serve all. So that was the basic tenets which he was spreading across, and it was colliding with the selfish aims of certain, monks and the emperors or whatever. They saw that the people are not going to listen. They're going to become different. They will be more understanding or, enlightened. And that's the way when they decided that in higher good for themselves, this man must be crucified. So imagine putting him on the nail. How painful it must have been, and how holier and how loving must have been Lord Jesus when even at the cross, he kept on forgiving those who crossed him. Right? And that's where subsequently on the Easter, when his body, when they found it was lifeless, they brought the body down, put it into one of the caves and put a big boulder there, right? And on Friday, when they went to see on the Sunday, the body wasn't found. Jesus resurrected, gave his darshan to his close ones. And that's where the scriptures go on to say that he was resurrected, he came out, right? Why? When did he come out? When he has crossed the eye. It is symbolic to tell us that the day we decide to cut our ego, our dehabhiman, or we just eliminate that, we start living into, Bhagwan's presence, omnipresence all the time. That's the day, in fact, we have also reached the state of good, happy Easter, where we have resurrected the divine self within us. All right. When Jesus was being crucified, Bhagwan says, he cried out to God, "Oh God, why do you punish me like this?" That is the first thing. Immediately he realized the truth and said, "Oh God, let your will prevail." And we all remain again, reminded of Kasturi ji when he was confronted by daughter, "Why don't you say this? Why don't you go and ask Swami? You arrange meetings and interviews and, for devotees, you bring them. Why don't you talk about yourself where our whole life has been shattered?" This is what it says. Kasturi said same thing. Let Swami's will prevail. He's perfect, embodiment of perfection. If he's embodiment of perfection, everything happening in our life is perfect. Why should I already change something which is already perfect? And this is Jesus on the cross. He says, "Oh God, let your will prevail. It is you who has created me, sustained me, protected me. I will not act against your will." Thereafter, an ethereal voice came into him. "All are one, my dear son. Be alike to everyone." He pleaded that those who were crucifying may be pardoned, for they did not know what they are doing. Look at the expansive heart. And this is where you can understand his consciousness had grown so much, Lord Jesus, so much that there was nothing else but love, love, love. Right? Imagine the sacrifice he did. Right? Jesus knew that everything happens according to God's will. So even while he was in agony in the cross, he bore no ill will to those who crucified him. He sacrificed himself for the sake of mankind. That's what Bhagwan has said in one of the discourses. He sacrificed himself for the sake of mankind. So sacrifice again becomes a very powerful tool to represent the love within. Okay, love has got various expressions. We'll talk about it. But here we saw Jesus sacrificing himself for the love of the mankind. All right. And then Bhagwan says, God takes upon himself the pain and sorrow of the world in order to prepare the hearts of the men for love. He says, when we saw Swami in the last few stages of his physical existence, almost hospitalized for a month plus and taking on, that's where the masters take on the illness, because they love the creation that they have, right? For them, there is no boundaries and difference. And this is where Bhagwan says, but when you look at the truth squarely in the face, you will know that in God, there is no suffering, and that you too have no reason to suffer. The entire world is a play of love. You suffer on the account of love. It's love, love right through. There's no reason for sorrow or pain. Okay. And then you see the similarity. In the Bible, it's recorded, Bhagwan says, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. When they asked him why he was doing, I'm washing your feet as your servant so that you may learn to serve others. How practical he demonstrated how seva should be done, right? And this is the photo, one of the photographs which Bhagwan created in one of the interviews and then gave to one Argentinian devotee, the first. And then he asked them to make 6 copies and gave to different devotees, Venezuelan devotee and so on and so forth. But this is when Jesus was, when he was 29. Only the master can produce you that evidence, because he has been the same consciousness pervading time, kala kala nama, kala tita nama. He is beyond time. So this was one thing which I saw in an article yesterday, and I felt it's important to put it up for all of us to have a darshan of Lord Jesus as he was, as created by our master. Then I'll come to one of the important things. Of course, I recall vividly that we were there when Swami created this Bible. When delivering Christmas discourse in 1996, Satsang Baba referred to a book compiled in Britain around 1530, containing all information gathered about Jesus, in the preceding centuries. And then he goes on to create this Bible, as you can see in his hand, a very small Bible, having the complete journey of Jesus in those years. Okay. And we all know about his creation of the cross and giving it to Brother John Hislop, right? And not only that, Bhagavan said this shows Christ as he really was at that time of the crucifixion, not as the artists have described. The cross is made of the wood, and then he said he has created that wood because the wood had disintegrated 2000 years. So he had to go back to the elements, recreate the whole thing, and present it to a devotee. And then Bhagavan says that I reached out to the elements and reconstituted sufficient material for a small cross. Very seldom does Swami interfere with nature, but occasionally for a devotee, it will be done. Again, he is throwing that challenge to us. If we qualify as a devotee of Bhagavan, if we fall in line with his teachings, if we do that, then possibly we may earn his grace and he can change the rules of engagement. All right, that's an important part. So let's hear in what is there in this particular video.
Dr. Jack Hislop of walking with Swami at Shivaratri to a dry riverbed where Swami was going to do some miracles. He breaks off 2 twigs and puts it in the form of a cross and asks Hislop, what is this? This is a clip showing the relationship of Swami and Shivaratri and Jesus.
Dr. John Hislop, head of the Satya Sai Council of the Americas, relates an experience when Sai Baba created a unique crucifix and presented it to him.
We were in India in the Bandipur forest at the time of Mahashivaratri, and Swami was driving around through the forest with several people to locate a place where the ceremony could be held. And we finally found a dry river bottom, and that evening we all came back again, got out of the cars and started to walk down the slope of the hill towards the dry river bottom. I happened to be walking beside Swami, and we passed a small bush. And Swami picked off 2 twigs and held them in the form of a cross like that and said, Hislop, what is that? I said, well, Swami, it's a cross. So he then put the 2 twigs in his hand like that and blew 3 times on his hand and opened his hand, and there was this cross that you see here on the back of my hand. He said, this is Christ as he really and truly was, not as artists and historians have pictured him. His stomach's all drawn in through several days of no food and so on. So I looked at it and I said, well, Swami, what is that hole at the top of the cross? He said, that is the hole that was made in the cross to hang the cross on a standard. And he said, furthermore, the wood of the cross is a piece of the actual cross upon which Christ was crucified. Then he added, and I can tell you it took a little time and trouble to find a piece of that wood after some 2,000 years.
All right. So, and then, there's another part of it where Swami created this. And when Brother Hislop, when he landed Mexico, when he landed his home, it was about, I think, 4:35 p.m. And as he entered his house, I mean, weather was fine, everything was great. There was no prediction, there was no weather changes. But suddenly, there was a huge storm. A sudden storm, the window slammed. And he was wondering, he was asking his wife, I mean, it was all calm and nice. What happened suddenly? Why there's such a storm? And the wife, also being, a very pious lady, as blessed by Swami, she said, don't you remember? This is the time, 5 p.m., when it is recorded that Christ was Christ left his body. He died at this time. And then after a momentary storm of about few minutes, it subsided. And next day, even in the newspaper, it came about this mysterious storm. So look at the way how things get connected when the Divine Master plays his game. All right. So it's very important in this day, holy day of Happy Easter, for every one of us to understand, delve into the sacrifice, tremendous sacrifice, an expression of love that Jesus had for the humanity. All right. And try to see there were two things in this. One was the forgiveness for the people who nailed him, still standing at the cross. He forgave them, right? And the second was a sacrifice he was ready to make. He knew in the Last Supper that he had the day before, one of the devotees, one of the bhaktas or one of his disciples had given this information to the Roman emperors that he is over here. And that's how people came and arrested him and prosecuted him. All right. So it's important sacrifice that he did and forgiveness. All right. So again, it connects to our topic, ongoing topic of divine love. You can't do that, brothers and sisters, unless you really have that element of divine love within us. Moving on. Yeah. So Christ, somewhere I was just trying to play around with the word cry. Christ is when you cry for the Ishta. Ishta is Devata or God or Bhagavan. So when you cry or pine for the Ishta, you become a Christ. It's like when you, miracle is what? When you call like Meera. Meera's call is miracle, right? When you go to that depth of pining to connect, that is where the thing starts connecting to the super soul or to the divine. And it makes your, sadhana on that particular day, at that particular moment fruitful. Why? Because you have been able to connect. And here Bhagavan says, some have come to me, asked this question. We have been engaged in sadhana for years and years, Swami. We have written the name lakhs and lakhs of time. We had those period in 1980s where Likhita Japam, everybody was on this notebook, including our family, my grandfather, father, mother, everyone. We were writing because we were going to present it on 60th birthday. So this Likhit Japam. So here Bhagavan says, people come and tell me we have written lakhs and lakhs of time. We have repeated it ceaselessly for many years, but we have not succeeded. What does it mean by succeed? We don't have that peace of mind. Okay. That equanimity, that samadhi state, samabuddhi state. And then Bhagavan says, have you yearned, have you pined, and have you wept for the Lord? Have you shed the tears of contrition, tears of exaltation while repeating his name? We shed tears. Bhagavan says, yes, we do. But God knows for what reason you shed them, not for me. And this is an important message to all of us. Do we shed tears of exaltation while repeating it? Do we get that connection? Because remember, when you connect, when you get that ecstasy, your tears will start flowing out. The cold tears is for joy and the warm is for some sorrow, right? So you'll feel the tears rolling out. Swami says you might have wept, but who knows for what. Your yearning must be warm, so warm that it can be called tapas. Your yearning should be so much. All right? So it's very, very important that we keep yearning for him. Only in the word yearning, you can see there's hidden the word earning. So when we yearn, we deserve to earn his grace, right? So that's again something which we should carry on today's holy day for Happy Easter. All right. Now let's get back to the topic or continue in the sequence that we had, because it's important to discuss Happy Easter and Good Friday briefly what we could to understand the significance and the magnitude of the sacrifice and love that Lord Jesus demonstrated. And you all can remember, even in the Purnachanda Hall, there is a big, a statue engraved like a photo frame on the Purnachanda Hall, right? Bhagavan says, you can call me Prema Swarupa. Prema is the wealth I have, which I scatter to the miserable and the afflicted. I have no other riches. That's the biggest weapon he has. That's the biggest currency he holds. Love, love, and only love. And that's the biggest thing which disarms the person or the devotee who comes with a lot of stress, a lot of things, and suddenly finds all that melted away. It's just like Swami Vivekananda was going to Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He was, from family wise, from the financial status wise, they were just poor. So he did not have enough resources. He used to go and tell Swami Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa that, do you talk to God? Do you talk to Margaret? He said, yes. How? He said, just as I'm talking to you. He says, can I also talk? Yes, you can also talk to God. So I need to talk to them So he told Ramakrishna, why don't you tell I'm going through this and this? I don't have, it's difficult to meet the ends, in my existence. So Ramakrishna said, why don't you go and talk to them? You will be able to talk in the same way that I am. Just yearn. So Vivekananda with a lot of bucket list, this I need to ask. At the moment he sat down in the meditation and to talk to Mahakali about his problems, he sat there for, some time. And when he came out of the meditation, Ramakrishna Paramahansa asked, did you ask mother? He said, no, I just forgot. I was lost in deep connection with her. Then Ramakrishna says, no, you have that purpose, right? You still have that. Go and ask her. He goes the second time. A second time again he comes back. He says, I just was lost in the mother. And that's what happens. When you connect to the divine, to the main source, everything else fades away. That's the power of divine love. All right. So how do we get it? Let's not be like a housefly which sits on every little thing, whether it is garbage or a flower, fragrance or, foul smell, everything is same for a housefly. Rather, we should be like a bee, completely dedicated only for taking the nectar, right? Not getting into garbage or any other business. So our devotion, our love should be only for Swami all the time, understanding that this is my master. This is where I have to take all the, strength of life. Whether it is worldly things you want to ask, whether it is spiritual, whatever things, he is the one who's going to give. And that's where we must be surrendered to him like that. As a magnetic compass which points always north, our love should always point towards God. That's another part we must understand. No matter what trajectory we are moving, where we are going, the magnetic, spiritual magnetic compass within us must always yearn and long for Satya Sai, or for the master that you have been praying, from your childhood, or the belief that you carry. It's very important to stick on to one and only one, right? Then Bhagwan also narrated about Paganini, the Italian violinist, when he went to play in 18th century in one of the French musical festival. As he was tightening the strings, one by one they started parting, brothers and sisters. So he's going to perform into a massive congregation of people who have come to listen to this music festival, and Paganini there is tightening. Out of the 4 strings, one by one, 3 of them snapped off. Now he was left with just 1. And Bhagwan said this particular story with a lot of fondness. And then he said that one string he continued to play. He came out to the stage and said, Paganini with 1 string. And then he went on to play one of the most beautiful, amazing music in that festival. Swami says, what is that 1 string that Paganini had? That string is of undying love for the divine, the surrender to God. You can't surrender to someone. We're not talking about a physical surrender where the criminals come and surrender to the policeman. We're talking about a surrender of your own being and self to someone. So once you have that, that is the 1 string you have, beautiful music is going to play out of our lives. So that's an important part, or I would say precondition for experiencing divine love, is surrendering, subjecting to the divine will. All right. And then Bhagwan also fondly talks about the Chataka bird, one of the birds which, despite being so thirsty, will not take into any water which is lying around the ponds, but just waits on the tree for the rainwater to come. If the rain doesn't come, maybe the bird has to even go and die thirsty, but it does not take any other water. Brothers and sisters, Swami says with fondness this example of surrender. Look at the Chataka bird. Look at the intensity of devotion that only the raindrop I will take. Do we have that kind of love that only if my Swami likes it, I will do it? There's nobody tere siva Prabhu, koi nahi hai, tujhko mera pranam. There's nobody besides you, Swami. So these are very important ingredients. Surrender is an important part where you can experience, we all can experience divine love. And then Bhagwan says, so long as you surrender to me, is equal-minded without any expectations of your own, with an unconditional acceptance of my will and judgment, my grace uninhibited by your personal preferences, effects an immediate cure. Now look at the arc we were talking about, the two welding, the welding rod and the, the object. The arc has to come to a certain reasonable distance before that arc can establish. That's what it is. When the surrender reaches to that intensity and magnitude, automatically the divine spark connects. However, if your faith is shallow, now he says, if your faith is shallow and you frequently question my judgment and compassion, you are going farther and farther away. And without your knowledge, you are delaying. So this is an important statement, brothers and sisters. We all know why we are suffering, or to a level, whatever we are going through in life. There are different challenges everybody has got. But then he says, without your knowledge, you are delaying the procedure yourself. You are delaying the effect of the cure yourself. Why? Because we are not surrendering to the intensity. Just when we are very close, we lose heart and we get off. And then we start looking for different Baba, different masters. That either to kaam nahi chala. I mean, this one didn't work. Just when we are about to reach. And that's an important thing, where the loyalty to the divine matters. Heart is an important component for experiencing divine love, right? You don't think love, you feel love, right? People say, right? I've fallen in love. So love is something which is felt with the heart. And Bhagavan says, follow the master, face the devil, fight to the end, finish the game. Who is your master? The conscience. Once you have love in your heart, you can accomplish anything. You should not have hatred towards anyone. We should love even those who hate us. Now look at the dimension that he wants and he expects us. You should love those who hate you also. That's what Jesus did, as we remember him today. As a result, Bhagavan says there will be Hridaya will come to its verbal fruition. That is why this word Hrid plus Daya, which means the heart should be full of compassion, correct? Full of love, full of kindness, right? That's why you see the word is mankind. Why? Because the kindness is automatically associated with mankind. It should be there. Why? Because you got a Hridaya. This is heart, this is feeling. This is something that nobody else has it, right? Being humans, we are empowered with this. And so he says, your Hridaya, once you have developed that love, it can't be a musical chair, that you have many chairs for many people. It has to be, again, surrender, going back to that message. It has to be a single seated sofa where only the master and the master sits there. And once we hand over the power of attorney to that master, we surrender, we love him, we install him, then he becomes the doer and we become the witness. We means the body, the identification. And that's an important part. No matter how much you rationalize, by theories, it's an important practical thing that we have to do is try to make him visible and installed within us. Try to hand over your worries, everything. Come and talk to him in front of the altar. Talk to him within. Have a communication. The problem is we have kept God at such a pedestal that we are so far away. We can't reach you. You are there. And that distance is creating a problem. It is more of becoming an excuse for us not to connect. Why? Because we've separated so far apart. We have to realize the Sakya Bhava is so important for us to experience that kind of kindness, right? And then coming to the scientific component of this part of Hridaya, Joe Dispenza, one of the great brain scientists, and he's metaphysicist, and he's you can Google down his videos. A tremendously successful person who's trying to make us understand by scientific reasoning why heart is important. When you intentionally make the expression of love a part of your daily practice, that's feeling, receiving and giving love, not only do you boost your immune system, but you begin to understand more and more you feel love, the more you become love. And when you become the embodiment of love, you can change the world. He's talking about love empowers us scientifically by the experiments that he has done. There's a lot of things that he has done. I got a couple of books. One is Super Soul and one is You Are the Placebo. Very interesting books. And he says out of his experiments that when we think deeply, we radiate electrical impulse. When we feel deeply, we radiate magnetic impulse. And when the Trikan Shuddhi, when both of them are in sync, we radiate electromagnetic impulse. That means we create a field which not only will attract, but will also radiate the same expression. So what you radiate, you're going to receive it back from the world, right? So it's an important part. Now let's see this small graph where you try to measure. You look at the left part of the graph. When there is no contact between the persons, subject A, person A, you can look at the brain wave measured by the EEG, electroencephalogram, and the subject B, the heartbeat. Now what happens when you touch holding hand? Let's say guys, the couple who's in love, or people who are in love, mother, father, mother, son, it can be husband, wife, it can be anyone, two friends. When you hold the hand, when it is this experiment, look at the sync at which the curve started to appear. The brain and the heart were measured to have a similar frequency. They were both resonating at a similar frequency. What it shows, brothers and sisters, is that with love, a difference can be made. That means we coming to satsang is like coming and sharing our love and, and impressing and influencing our own mental and physical and spiritual systems. We are creating that vibration around us. We are able to radiate that and also receive from you the same time. And that's what scientifically it has been proven. So Hridaya, heart, is an extremely important powerhouse of emotions which radiates this unseen vibrations that impact us as a being if we are in the periphery of that heart. And that's why you see when Frank Baranowski, when he measured the auras, he developed this clinical photography, and now it has gone to, I think biocells have come in where different measurements are taking place. But the auras that he measured had certain limitations, 1 feet, half a feet, 1 meter, and all depending on the individual's, expressions and emotions and intensity. But when he measured for Swami, it was endless. The divine aura was absolutely blue, and the love aura pink was out there with no ends when Swami was standing one day in 70s on the old Prashanti Mandir, as you can visualize. And that's what he has captured scientifically, saying that I'm risking my reputation as a scientist by saying this, I have met the divine today. Brothers and sisters, what more evidence do we need that love is such a powerful transmitter as well as a receiver, right? So divine love, we must work towards it. And that's why no wonder Bhagavan used to say, Prema Atma Swaruplara, Divya Atma Swaruplara. Because we are all embodiments of love. I separated myself from myself to love myself means that we are all embodiments of love. And we have no other purpose in this world except to experience love. We may be embroiled in any activities, brothers and sisters, even in the office, experience love. Talk to people with love. With a lot of understanding, you'll see the difference that you spend time 10 hours in the office, which looks like 10 days sometimes. It will become so shortened. You will love going to the office, no matter what turbulence is happening around. Every company has got things moving around, different management change, things change. But let that not the circumstance, let not paristhiti change the manosthiti. Let not circumstances change your mind state. Let the manosthiti change the paristhiti. How we feel, behave, and exist. Let that influence the things around us, right? Moving on. Again, it was this is another beautiful experiment that was done where the dog and the boy, now they're in different rooms. There's a guy who has got a pet. So the pet is in different room and the guy is in different room. So now you can see the heart rate that was measured for the dog and for the boy. Now what happens is, what they did next was the boy then enters the room where the pet was kept, and they were measuring the heart rate. Look at the rhythm, look at the change, because suddenly the dog saw the master, whom you love, so loyal, and you see the measurement. It changed the whole pattern because heart to heart the communication started. And when he left the room, when the boy left the room, the dog still wanted him to stay, but gradually you see again it started going back to the same. What it says is our presence, our vibration impacts the things around us, the people around us, and similarly the others do that. We have to be really careful about it, right? When we are what we are talking, how we are thinking. Not only talking, brothers and sisters, what we are thinking, how intensely we are feeling. The emotions, the feelings are extremely important radiators. Okay, when you look at this small photograph which I happen to get from the net, it says human's heart Magnetic field can be measured several feet away. In fetal development, the heart forms and starts beating before the brain. Again, you see when the evolution of a child, the heart is formed the first. Positive emotions create psychological benefits in the body. You can boost your immune system by focusing on positive emotion. Again, emotion is not connected to the mind, it's connected to the heart. And that's why you got EQ very predominantly nowadays being measured for any job or anything. Your emotional quotient is measured because that defines a personality, a person's character. All right, it's not only personality. Positive emotions can increase the brain's ability to make good decisions, and negative emotions can create nervous system chaos. So you can see how emotion and heart plays such an important role scientifically. So what sinks in the heart links in the hearts. Whatever gets into your thinking in is linking in with everyone around. So it's not a confined exercise that only one person is doing it. It gets spread out to everyone that you are interacting with. I think we'll stop it here. And again, one measurement you can see what they have done is love and appreciation. Look at the heart rate and when you're in anger and so on and so forth. Different emotions were measured, were checked against, what kind of pattern they are having, what are the frequency they're having. And this is what was measured. And that's why Bhagwan says, Yat bhavam tad bhavati. Bhavam is feeling, feeling is from heart. So whatever you feel strongly, it manifests. With that, I think for today's session, I'll try to just conclude over here, calling on Brother Shastri to share with us what he has today as part of the now 100 names. Brother Shastri.
Sairam, brother. I think it's a very wonderful, the physics part of it. I was just connecting the electricity and the magnetism there for the feelings and the thoughts. A wonderful resource and the information you have presented. So Swami's 108 name for today is Om Sri Sai Kanakambara Dharine Namaha. Salutation to Sai who wears the orchard robe. So ochre robe. So why? How the story behind how Swami ended up wearing this? Because when Swami declared in 1940 and ultimately, he expressed his mission and for the devotees. Then till 1946, Swami used to wear white robes. So, but then what happened was the thin crowd of the devotees was not that much at that time. It was less. But Swami used to tell everyone that you are very close to me. I am speaking to all of you. So very soon you will see that I'll be very far away from you. You will not be able to, so Swami always used to tell us also as students, and which has unfolded within 2 to 3 decades. In 1980s, Swami used to say that. So then devotees, Swami, when he used to wear that white robe, used to get mixed with, elderly people always used to wear at that time white, dhotis and the paisama and all those top kurta, whatever. So Swami used to get mixed in the crowd. So the Kuppam family, which was very close to Swami, one of the first families, they presented to Swami a colored the ochre robe first for our first time to Swami. Swami, because they gave it out of love, Swami accepted it. Since then, he started wearing, of course, on Navaratri days, he used to wear different colored robes also. But then that remained, the ochre robe remained with Swami. But see, one more thing is anything that Swami has worn or whatever Swami has never bought or had for himself. But there was a small incident that has happened with respect to robe itself. Once Swami was in Dharmakshetra along with the family, that means with Ishwaramma and others, with all other devotees. So Swami was supposed to go to Pandharpur. Swami said, before I come back again to Mumbai, all of you take a bus or you go around Mumbai and do the sightseeing. So then Ishwaramma, in a loving way, asked Swami, we don't have any money. Then Swami, he put his hands on his robe on the sides and said, my robe does not have any pockets. So where do I have money? I don't have any money. And so, see, what we understand from this is whatever Swami has worn, even his robe, his devotees out of love that has given, has remained on his body till the end. Swami always used to say, my hand is always to give, and it is never stretched even once for anything. So as we were discussing about Jesus, on Easter Sunday, it is relevant as well. So the divine is divine wherever in the world. So it's always to give and sacrifice themselves for the benefit of humanity. So that is what Swami had shown us with this just single robe, just one robe on his entire body, nothing, no other abharanas, no other this one Swami ever had so to show, so except for the pure love. Sairam. Brother, you are muted.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, brother. I think you always provide that icing on the cake towards the end of the session, connect some of the Swami's miracles. And having said that, once we have this session concluding, most probably now next time, we'll also hook on some of the experiences. We'll connect some of the devotees here in this and otherwise to just share, 5-7 minutes of their personal journey in love with love, uh, to conclude this particular divine love session as we go on. Thanks. And finally, we end with Samastaloka. समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। जय बोलिए भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। Sai Ram, brothers and sisters. Thanks for joining, and we'll catch up again in 2 weeks' time. We'll send out anything for sharing or what we're going to do in the SMS. Thanks.
Sairam, brother. Sairam.
Have a blessed day.
Thank you, brother. Bye, brother.
Sai Ram, Sai Ram.
ओहो मम्मी को नहीं